So, Brad, my understanding is that there is a new regulation coming for how out-of-state sellers get treated from a tax perspective.
That's correct.
Brandy new.
Brandy new is right. It actually goes into effect November 1st. And it says seller regulations. It's for properties being sold by out-of-state investors for over $1 million. Now, that sounds like a big number to a lot of people, and it is a big number to a lot. But if you think about some properties that are going, especially if it's an investment property, maybe it's a multifamily, maybe it's a big single family that a major holding company. There was a lot of investment companies that bought up a lot of single family homes to make them rental. If they end up selling those properties, what they're going to do is they're going to require that the closing attorney do what I'm going to call a tax holdback. The purpose of the law is to make sure that the state of Massachusetts is getting, I'm going to say, their pound of flesh, so to speak, getting their tax dollars from people that live out of state and that are selling property. They want to make sure that they get paid on it because they're not filing Massachusetts tax returns.
Yeah, but well, you're not gonna evade the long arm of the tax collector. So is this a new regulation, or how was it done before this new regulation?
I don't know how it was done, but I'm pretty sure that it was not the responsibility of the conveyancer to do the tax holdback for the state of Massachusetts. It was the responsibility of the seller to file that they had sold a property in Massachusetts and had some sort of capital gain on it, let's say, whatever. They made money on that property, and they were responsible for the taxes associated with that.
You know, Brad, I hate taxes. Just going to say that.
Sure. I agree.
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Sounds good, Gary.
We're trying to keep the cadence going here, Brad.
There you go.
So, Brad, you're back from a family trip to France.
Yeah.
Did you look at homes when you were there?
You mean to buy or to rent or
no, just to be inquisitive.
I did. Well, I did. It's certainly different. You're not seeing, your splits and your standard colonials. The architecture in France, at least in the places that I was much older and very interesting. Very interesting. We rented a home in the French countryside, in a town called Auch, just outside of Toulouse, and it was really kind of funky, all the way from having very old architecture. It was an attached home. It wasn't a detached. It was an attached home very close to the town square. Very, very old, but then inside had been completely redone, new kitchen, and it actually had I'm going to describe it as plexiglass because I don't know what else to call it, a loft and a catwalk that walked across the top. So there was 2 bedrooms up with a like a lucite catwalk that you could see below you and everything into the main.
So is it something that a full-figured guy like myself would be cautious to walk across?
No, it was very strong, supported by steel framing. It was a combination of very modern and very old, and it was kind of a cool thing. It was very.
So roughly, when was that property built?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't begin to guess. Other than, I mean, I can tell you my guess is the renovations were done in the last 10 years because they were.
No, I understand that, but was this a case of something that was 200 years old?
It could have been. It's very hard to tell because what they do is they mask it. So, for example, in one of the bathrooms, I could see they had lowered the ceiling. They did a lot of vaulted ceilings back then. You had these very high roof lines and ceilings and such, and which is why they put the catwalk in, right? Normally that house had basically one level with this really high ceiling. Well, they said, well, we can put this catwalk and this loft in through a steel staircase going up, and then this lucite floor with a catwalk, and then a bedroom on either side. And they turned that loft into, or they turned that space into a loft or living space. In the bathroom, I could see they had lowered the ceiling, but if you looked up, you could see this all this old plaster and such. So it's very hard to say, but it could be hundreds of years old, and they've just renovated it over time. It was so close to the town square, you can understand how people lived. Back then you didn't jump in your car, drive 5 minutes, and go to the supermarket. You went to the town square, and as we did, one of the days they had the purveyors there with their produce and their eggs and their meat and such. And it was fabulous. I mean, it was the center of activity, and it was really kind of fun to see people walking around, and it was really interesting. It was great.
Well, I had a friend that worked as an expat in London for a while, and one of the things that he observed is people don't buy their homes there; they rent them, and that was the big aha for them, was everything was rented.
Yeah, I mean, I, it was interesting to me because there was a lot of people that actually owned homes. I don't know how long those homes had been owned, but that were renting them. We rented one through like a VRBO, but it was a single family home. It was funny when we were in Paris. We stayed in a hotel. We were right in the metropolitan center, right a couple of blocks from the Eiffel Tower, so we were right in the action, and that was great. Paris was very busy and very chic. We all this great stuff, and it was wonderful. But that's not my pace. I'm more of a kind of a country guy, and so we went out to the French countryside. That was wonderful too. As I mentioned, the town square with the open market on a Saturday where people buy all their stuff, and it was. I said at one point to my wife, I said, I feel like breaking out in like a Disney song. It was like something you'd see, in the movies. They had the town square and people.
Well, you were looking for the young Julie Andrews, and they can come through chimney and all that stuff.
This was more Beauty and the Beast. I was the Beast in this one. My wife was the Beauty, but it was just one of those things where people were out and purveyors were out. That was the other interesting. A lot of little shops. So you go boutiques for women, right? When I say little, maybe 300 square feet, and you'd go in and they had a little bit of clothing, and they'd sit outside at their little cafe table with a little chair and a little little coffee, and they would sit down. And then when you walked in their store, they walked behind you, they showed you the goods, and then 2 doors down we had one where there were two sisters. They owned two shops that were 2 doors away from each other. So it was just fabulous and so welcoming. Really, really wonderful experience.
Let's go on to the next one, Brad.
All right, sounds good, Gary.